Okay, so we're back and we're going to take a look at Apple now. So let's go back over here to Steve's site and we're going to come down to the next year. Now, one of the things that I wanted to point out by showing you this is that there was tons of people that understood this wave, right? They saw the shrinking down of these computer components and they saw that they could go get them off the shelf and they could do something with them. Now that's still something really hard to do, which is build the dang thing, code those your system so the chips will do what they need to do, right? That's what they're talking about. Talk about tinkering, right? You're going to get those chips, not only solder them on the board, but you're going to program them to do what you want them to do. Wow, that's a whole nother level, right? So down here, I like to point this out is that there's Apple's, there's IBM's computer. Now, the company IBM, as you watch in the videos, they're the computer company, right? They're the ones. But look at that price tag. Now, you may look at it and say, that's just ridiculous and stupid. How could IBM be so stupid? Notice that it used APL and or BASIC. So in other words, that you could write BASIC on this thing back in the September of 1975. But what they're looking at, right, is they sell these massive mainframe systems and they cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if you're interested in, this is what they think, in something smaller, a microcomputer, then you're probably going to be using it with those systems. So this is an add-on to them. This is something that is much cheaper. So you're going to buy that mainframe. Now you're also going to get one of these 5100s. By the way, a lot of these old computers are worth a lot of money. So if you ever see any of these old computers at a yard sale or something, you probably should buy it. It's one of those finds. You know, you buy it for $10. This one would sell for thousands and thousands of dollars if you could find one of those. Anyway, so they released this 5100. Then there is this Moss Kim, and this is done by Commodore. And you can see that this thing is just a single board computer. It's got a little LED so you can type things in on this keyboard. And it's cheap, $245. This is what somebody would buy to build their own computer with. So they give you the logic. So that's all done for you. Then you actually can go ahead and program beyond that. And so 1976 is when that comes out. I love to point that out. And then Apple One comes out. And you'll notice that that's $666. And that's what it looks like. It's their single board computer. That's what it is. And so lots of times it's really painted like if you watch history shows, movies that are based on it, or even some of the history channels that do this, they're like, oh yeah, there was this Altair computer and it was a piece of crap. And then Apple came out with this friendly computer and woo, boom, it took off and the rest is history. Of course, that's not really the case. So let's look at their setup because it is interesting to see. This is the Apple One, and they put it in this box with a keyboard. And the amazing thing that was about it is that these two guys are friends, and they really are. Not anymore, obviously, because Steve Jobs is not with us. Wozniak still is, and notice his hair and how long it is. That was a choice because he was making some extra money in advertising a store or something, and they were dressing anyway. He was trying to make it a living, right? And you get to see a lot of the Woz in the history of computer stuff that you get to watch, which is fantastic. And he expresses there that, hey, I someday, Dad, I'm not going to buy a house. I'm going to buy a computer because computers were that expensive. Buy a house or buy a computer. He wanted a computer. That was his desire. So when he grows up and he is an engineer and he lives on basically a block that has tons of engineers. Steve Jobs' father is one of those. Steve Jobs and him go to the same school, all that stuff. He starts to take this equipment, right, earning a little money, and he starts putting together his own computer. And the amazing thing about his is that not only did it have this really nice keyboard, even though you may not think it's nice, it also was connected to a television screen. So he had video output on this thing, and basically for a one board computer with video output, man, he did a tremendous job. And as I said in my writings that I had, he actually uh, Steve Jobs comes to him because he's working at Atari. So he's working over there at Atari, kind of like a cheap part-time job laborer person, trying to get his name out there, right, to get into this field. And they ask him to redo the design of Breakout, which is this popular game that they released, so that basically what they would do is they prototype the game. So I don't really talk about this in class, but you would lay out what you would need to do on this game. So if you were actually building this for the arcade, right, you could build a big board and the game would run on that board. You'd put that board in the arcade system. Well, we need to put that into a cartridge. And so we need to take 50 chips and reduce them. And so he goes to Wozniak to really get that down. So I'm not trying to say Jobs was stupid, because he wasn't, but he really needs to get the process as far down. So he wants to impress these guys, right? This guy gets it down to 5 chips, right? From 50 to 5. That's just incredible. He's still kind of known as the high wizard of electrical engineering. He was a flipping genius. But in any case, Wozniak does not want to take this in to show his boss, because he's got an internship at HP. Now, you recognize that HP is a computing company. Yeah, and they were making computers then. And Steve Jobs, being who he was, apparently he was the kind of person that could really get you to see his vision and see his way of doing things. And so he really convinces Wozniak that these people that they need to go talk to, his boss, will not understand what he's got, and they'll be able to get the rights to this equipment. And what Steve Jobs is, if you watch any of the movies, they're kind of false. They always make things more exciting. But Steve Jobs realizes that, hey, you're going over here to one up people at your club that you're part of, and there's thousands of people as part of this club, and you're taking your computer over there to show it off and go, look what I did. You guys don't know what you're doing, because engineers are competitive that way. There's probably thousands of people we could sell this to, right? Because we're not the only computer club in the world. That's really what Steve Jobs is thinking. We can take this as a kit and we can sell it to people, and there'll be a bunch of people that will buy it. So they go into the HP exec or his boss and say, I want rights. I know that you guys own it. Because basically, if you internship with one of these companies, they own everything that you do as an engineer. That's apparently the way things just work. And so the guy just looks at it and goes, you guys are idiots. Nobody wants a personal computer, because what would you use it for? What would you possibly use a personal computer for? We don't want that. We're not going to do that here. And he signs the paper, and that gives them legal rights to go and sell that board. They saw that there was a need for that. So you got Microsoft over there, right? You got Bill Gates going over there in 75 and building something that will run on a computer to make the computer more friendly and usable. And you've got Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak creating this system that now they're going to sell to people and allow them to build their own computers. So again, how does Commodore really fit into that? Well, Commodore, again, they made a one board, and that was the MOS Kim 1. They made that. And it's not as capable. It just isn't as capable, but hey, the price is down there, right? Where you can afford it. And so it isn't much later where they realize that these things are flying off the shelf. Everybody's buying Altairs, everybody's buying Kim 1s, everybody's buying the Apple One. Can't produce enough of them. Let's build a computer that somebody can actually use. So in 1977, the Apple II is the first computer they released. This is what it looks like. And that's fully loaded because they got a couple of disk drives. And basically, Wozniak, one of the huge things he's known for is creating this interface between this kind of storage. He was one of the first people to do that. And the price for it on the low end is $1,298, so $1,300. So it's expensive, but it's within range that people that want one can buy one. And then Commodore releases this, which they called a personal electronic transactor. And that personal electronic transactor, it actually came with a monitor built in. And yes, it was still a little less capable, but the price was better. So these things start flying off the shelves like you would not believe. As a matter of fact, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak actually went to Commodore. If you actually do the extra credit, you'll find this out. Actually go to Commodore and basically try to set up a situation where they're going to be the lead engineers and bosses of this computer, but it'll be sold underneath the Commodore title because Commodore is just becoming this massive, massive company. And so you can see that. Then others come out. So Radio Shack TSR-80, they called it the Trash 80 because it did have some problems. But again, hey, the price is right in there with a monitor, $600. And that's what it looked like. So there's tons of these computers coming out from all sorts of different people. There's the Apple II, there's Commodore PAT, there's the Radio Shack. And then, of course, in 1977, you can't really call this a full-blown computer, right? Because it doesn't do word processing. It could, but you'd have to add a keyboard and all that stuff to it. It just plays games, but it is a type of computer. It's just a very specific type in 1977, and that becomes massively, massively popular. So as you go down a little further, though, I always wanted one of these Bailey systems. Just to stop for a minute. Bailey made tons of arcade systems that I actually liked, and so I always wanted one of those. These are worth a lot of money, $700, $800 now. Anyway, here's IBM again. So there's the IBM, the next model, and $10,000. So it's not like IBM doesn't know what's going on. It's that they don't quite have the view that they need. They don't really realize that that normal everyday people or close to everyday people are buying these. And by the time you get to the PAT and the Apple II, right, education is putting them in, teaching kids how to program because they can see that this computer is going to fundamentally change everything. Lots of small businesses are putting Apple IIs or Commodore PATs in because they can do spreadsheets on them, which is a big deal. They can keep track of their accounting and they can keep track of their customers, right? Wouldn't it be great if you could actually just type up a name and then when you hit enter, it actually showed you that customer and everything that they purchased? Wow. You know, that we take that for granted today, but that was a big thing. IBM's still seeing it as this is a component that we should offer as part of our big systems. And that's a problem because nobody at home is going to buy a $10,000 computer, not today and not then. But you'll see that there's tons of them starting to come out. And there's an assignment that I have you do where you're actually going to come out here and look at these different systems and say, you know, based on what you see here, what would you have done, right? What would you have done? Here's Ohio Scientific. There's a board that you're going to put in. Video Brain family computer. I've never seen this one. Let's see what it looks like. Come on, Video Brain. $500 for this thing. That's not too bad. Oh, wow. Look at that. Probably very, very hard to find. In any case, my point is tons of computers are coming out. Tons of companies are starting up trying to make a big deal out of this and try to make it cheap enough because tons and tons of people are buying them. And that is a huge, huge, huge thing. And Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak were, again, a couple of those people that were like, hey, this is becoming huge. We know how to get this job done. Let's get it done. And they got it done and, you know, made tons and tons of money off of it. And really, when you look at this, it's like, why buy Apple II? Why buy Commodore PAT? Because those were the best products out there. The next biggest one would have been Radio Shack. In other words, the things worked. They had power enough to do what you wanted to do. They had the options that everyone needed, where the other ones were always missing something. So in the next video, we'll take a look at IBM and where they come into and how they really change the industry and why they change the industry. So there's some interesting things that happen there because of who they are. So see you in the next video.